Kentucky Kingdom just debuted an all-new wooden roller coaster. This is a Gravity Group family coaster. It runs right alongside Hurricane Bay, and it is exactly what the park needed. Is that perfect in-between coaster for those too old for roller skater, but maybe not quite ready to work their way up to Thunder Run. But what I love about this ride, it is the perfect definition of a family coaster. What I mean by that is sometimes when you hear the term family coaster, you often think of a toned down ride, something that the kids will like, but the enthusiasts and maybe some of the older kids will be kind of underwhelmed by. But this is the perfect family coaster because everyone will like it. I've ridden so many roller coasters around the world and I loved this thing. And the crazy thing is, a tall 3-year-old or your average 4-year-old can ride this ride. It has such a low height requirement. And when you see stats like 47 feet tall or max speed 35 miles per hour, not very impressive, right? But what Gravity Group does so well is packing in a great layout even when they don't have the height and speed in their favor. Because we've all seen what Gravity Group can do at their full potential. You get rides like Voyage that are absolutely insane. But I'll tell you, if you're riding this thing in the back row, Kentucky Flyer sometimes doesn't even feel like a family coaster because of how much airtime there is on this ride. That being said, there are definitely certain seats that you need to sit in if you're wanting that kind of ride experience. If you're looking for a bigger thrill, back row all the way. That was my personal favorite seat on this ride. That's because I'm looking for a bit more of an extreme ride experience. If you're a mom looking to take a young child on this ride, I would recommend sit as close to the front of the train as possible. There's only 6 rows on this, and sometimes I know people can be a little intimidated by the front row, especially when they're so young. But I'm telling you, front row on Kentucky Flyer is probably going to be your most tame ride experience. The further back you sit, you're going to get a lot more ejector airtime. Those sharp pops sending you flying up out of your seat. And that's why if you watch this rider cam video of me and a friend on this thing in the front row, you'll see that on some of the airtime hills, we aren't necessarily going flying up out of our seat. That's because we didn't have an on-ride view of us in the back, where you'd see us flying up out of every single hill. And honestly, I think it is a good thing that the front doesn't give as crazy of a ride experience as the back. Because really what that allows them to do is cater the experience depending on their audience. And that's why I think this is going to be a universally loved roller coaster. It's smooth, it's got a fun layout, maybe not the longest ride in the world, but that's okay. It honestly doesn't need to be. I think it's at a good enough length where after you get off, you're just gonna get back in line. And that's what we saw people doing all opening weekend. We saw people of all ages get off this thing and immediately get back in line. I can tell you right now, this is going to be a huge hit for Kentucky Kingdom. So let's get into some specifics. When you go to ride this, it's important to know where the entrance is. It is going to be to the left of the Hurricane Bay Beach Club, right near the entrance to Starcatcher. Starcatcher is the only other non-water ride really located in that area. You do have the giant wheel nearby that you have to walk past to get here, but one of the advantages to this spot is that it gives a really nice profile when you're in the water park. You just see that skyline of the coaster all around you, which is really cool. But the entrance is a little hidden, and the station is kind of far back there, so you see the sign telling you where to enter, and then you take this long walk back there. You see some signs talking about velocity, giving some stats of the coaster because it is plane themed, hence why you have that beautiful front of the train in blue and silver. And then you walk up to your station. It's not a very big station, but remember, this train only seats 12 people, so it doesn't need to be super big. But that being said, it is still pretty small. So after you've picked your row, you're going to board your train, and this is a Timberliner train. What's different about that compared to your average wind coaster train is that means that this train can articulate more. It can take some of these transitions in a compact space. It means some of those elements are going to be a little bit snappier than they would be otherwise. You pull down your restraint and it almost has this curved kind of lap bar feel. Timberliner trains have always been very comfortable. And one of my favorite things about them, and I don't know, maybe this is kind of stupid, I love the sound they make on the ride. Gravity Group coasters have such a distinct sound that is different from most wooden coasters, and I love it. But anyways, so you start climbing up that lift hill. Only 47 feet tall. You level out, turn a little bit to the right, and then you go down at a 52-degree angled descent. As I mentioned, back row is going to be a bit more intense, and so as you go down that drop, that is going to be your first moment of airtime. That sends you into your first ejector moment. It's this twist to the left, small low to the ground hump, and then it takes you up into your first hill. In the front, that's going to be more like floater airtime. In the back, you're really going to get pulled over. You have kind of 2 more consecutive lower to the ground ejector hills, and then you take that turnaround. And that turnaround actually rises up a bit. So then when you twist out, you fall and then rise up and go into what is the quad down. These are 4 continuous ejector airtime hills that they don't go all the way down to the ground. Instead, the hills gradually take you down lower and lower, stepping down each time. And for a Gravity Group family coaster to have a quad down, that's pretty impressive. I think if you talk to most people, they'll tell you that the return trip of Kentucky Flyer is actually going to be better than the trip out there. So in other words, once you've passed that turnaround, everything after that is better than the first half. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot more hills, they're smaller, they're impactful, they all send you up out of your seat. Some of them are banking or twisting a little bit. And so it's just so much fun. And the pacing is really good too. You never really lose speed as you're going along this ride course. And as I mentioned earlier, the coaster is just super re-rideable. This really is something that you're just going to want to do over and over again. And that's why I think it is such a good family coaster. Because I think the kids are going to go nuts over this thing. It'll be many of their favorite ride, I imagine. I don't think the enthusiasts, those will be their favorite ride, especially when you have rides like Storm Chaser in that same park. But they'll be able to ride Kentucky Flyer and enjoy it. And it's something that they'll want to go back to. They can go back and ride Storm Chaser and then say, hey, let's go ride Kentucky Flyer. And everyone will say, yeah, that thing's so much fun. Don't expect the greatest ride in the world, especially if you're a coaster veteran and have done so many. But in the world of family coasters, how many are this enjoyable? And the fact is, I think every park should have a coaster like this. And I said the same thing when I rode Oscar's Wacky Taxi at Sesame Place. These Gravity Group family coasters are absolutely fantastic. I think they're way better than anyone expects. And I hope more parks start taking notice of these and start building some. So for Kentucky Flyer's final score, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. And for those of you who might not be as familiar with how the score works, each score is done on an individual level. So think of it as a family coaster, is this as good as it can get? And I think, yes, it is. Receiving a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean it's the #1 roller coaster in the world or anything. It just means that I personally cannot think of a way to make the coaster any better. Sure, obviously maybe a little bit more theming or something, but if we're talking layout, I wouldn't do anything to change it. I think the trains are beautiful. I love the color scheme. People think, oh, it's a wooden coaster, so it'll probably just be brown and normal. No, I love this because it has that steel hybrid white structure that really pops against that blue sky with the red rails. As you're seeing in this footage, the ride is stunning. That white, brown, and red looks so good. It's a really pretty coaster. So even if it's something that you don't think is the type of coaster you'll enjoy, at least you can get some enjoyment just watching it as you're hanging out maybe in the water park. So I absolutely think Kentucky Kingdom nailed it with this ride. Hats off to Gravity Group. They did a fabulous job. So that's going to do it for this review. If you're new to the channel, be sure to check out other past coaster reviews I've done. They're all available in a playlist organized in alphabetical order. I've reviewed coasters all around the world. Check that playlist, see if one of your favorites is on there. And of course, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll catch you guys next time.